What is cloud computing? We have numerous definitions for cloud computing. But when I was preparing the presentation, I found that the definition on Wiki happens to be one that I like the best. Now that graphic shows the cloud, and it shows at the bottom level, the infrastructure, which is compute and storage and network. And it shows the platform, which is object storage and runtime and queue and database and identity, and then the application level, monitoring and content collaboration. And of course, outside that, it shows servers, laptops, desktops, phones, and tablets. So as we see, there are multiple pieces. Now, what Wiki does is they define cloud computing as the delivery of computing as a service rather than a product, whereby shared resources, software, and information are provided to computers and other devices as a utility, like the electricity grid, over a network, typically the internet. And that really sums it up. They further go on to say, cloud computing provides computation, software, data access, storage services that do not require end-user knowledge of the physical location and configuration of the system that delivers the services. Parallels to this concept can be drawn from the electricity grid, wherein end users consume power without needing to understand the component devices or infrastructure required to provide the service. They then say the concept of cloud computing fills a perpetual need of information technology, a way to increase capacity or add capabilities on the fly without investing in new infrastructure, training new personnel, or licensing new software. Cloud computing encompasses any subscription-based or pay-per-use service that in real time over the internet extends IT's existing capabilities. And they conclude with, cloud computing describes a new supplement, consumption, and delivery model for IT services based on internet protocols, and it typically involves the provisioning of dynamically scalable and often virtualized resources. We will talk a little bit more about virtualization as we go into the presentation. It's a byproduct and consequence of the ease of access to remote computing sites provided by the internet. This may take the form of web-based tools or applications that can access and be used through a web browser as if the programs were installed locally on their own computers. And they conclude with, cloud computing providers deliver applications via the internet, which are accessed from a web browser, while the business software and data are stored on servers at a remote location. In some cases, legacy applications, line of business applications that until now have been prevalent in thin client Windows computing, are delivered by a screen share technology such as Citrix NApps or Microsoft Remote Desktop Services that many of you may be familiar with, while the other computing resources are consolidated at a remote data center location. In other cases, the entire business applications have been rewritten in web-based technologies such as Ajax or .NET. Now, having said all that, that's a pretty good, thorough definition of cloud computing. On our next slide, we want to look at software as a service, which is a subset of cloud computing that you're probably already using. If you have a Gmail account or a Hotmail or any other online email account, that is email in the cloud, runs through a web browser. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the applications, you don't have any idea where it's stored or how it's stored. You have no responsibility to maintain any of the infrastructure. We look at NetSuite or Salesforce or SAP Business by Design. These are ERP systems that are browser-based and run from the cloud. If you're using a Constant Contact or other email broadcasting services, they are all done through the cloud. We define different types of cloud computing, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. Let's start with Pure Cloud. Pure Cloud is where all your applications and data are put on the other side of your firewall in the cloud and accessed through various devices, laptops, iPads, phones, via the internet. That means you've put everything in the cloud. You essentially have no file server locally, no application stored locally. Everything is in the cloud. A hybrid cloud enables you to put certain pieces of your infrastructure, say storage, disk storage, and email exchange or email in the cloud, and the remainder of your infrastructure stays on premise. Premise cloud and HaaS hardware as a service. This is where specialized hardware and software are installed at the client location, and existing physical servers are replaced with virtual servers. The existing applications and data are moved to these servers, and the client pays a single monthly bill. Right now, my company is partnering with Intel Hybrid Cloud, and we're looking at Zenith Infotech Smart Style Office. And these are rack mount, specially designed servers that run virtual servers and virtual desktops, but they're placed on premise. They are not. They are in your facility. They provide cloud type services and cloud type monthly utility billing, so you don't have to purchase the infrastructure. And that's called the premise cloud. And then we have point solutions. Point solutions we're fairly familiar with. These are like hosted Microsoft Exchange. We've been involved with that for our clients for many years, actually several years, where rather than have the cost and expense and maintenance of an in-house Exchange server, we provide a service where they have the full access to Exchange 2007 or 10 through a cloud service provider, and we manage and maintain that for them. And they pay a monthly fee per email account per month. And then public cloud versus private cloud, to try and clear that up a little bit. A public cloud is a service that anyone can tap into with a network connection and a credit card. Amazon EC2, Elastic Cloud 2, if you want to spin up a server, all you have to do is have an Amazon account and sign up for an Amazon EC2, and you can go and configure a 2008 R2 virtual server. And Steve is quite familiar with that. Public clouds are shared infrastructures that give you pay-as-you-go, managed service through a self-service web portal, and that's exactly how Amazon EC2 works. Private clouds are essentially self-built infrastructures that mimic public cloud service but are on-premise. So there's a little overlap between private cloud and premise cloud, but that'll try and get you a little bit of better definition. Now, it makes it really difficult for a business owner to try and decide, do I want a public cloud, a private cloud, a hybrid cloud? So what's happened in the industry is the cloud service providers and integrators, such as ourselves, are putting together packages where the package will be either point solutions, a simple solution or package, maybe a small business offering, or a total cloud offering. And the business owner doesn't have to be concerned about whether it's hybrid or total public, whatever. A point solution is simply that. We're solving a specific problem, like an out-of-date Exchange server, it's out of disk, and we get rid of it, we put all their Exchange on a hosted service. Hosted spam filtering, Office 365 from Microsoft, and cloud disk storage like Ignite and CloudSpace, where you can map a disk drive. You can buy 200 gig of disk space in the cloud and map a drive letter on your local workstation to it and treat it just as if you had a server with 200 gig of disk. So those are point solutions, and you pay per user per month or per consumption level. A simple solution or package might consist of hosted Exchange, hosted SharePoint, and some other hosting. They're typically sold in X amount of help desk, and they're sold in groups or minimum amounts, and that might be a good solution for your business. A small business offering moves up the scale a little bit. Now we're talking about Exchange Office, the Office Suite, Exchange, 1 or 2 line of business applications, and 1 or 2 servers. Servers are dedicated. Line of business applications typically require a remote desktop server in the cloud, Citrix or XenApps, Citrix XenApps or RDP, and maybe SQL and the line of business application. We're now getting into strategic business critical functions when we get to the small business offering, and it becomes much more critical to make sure your cloud provider has the right resources and the right offerings. And then we move up to the total cloud offering, where the client wants to have everything in the cloud, all managed by a solution provider. They don't want to touch anything. That includes all applications. It's a complex environment, typically multiple locations. There's heavy consultation, integration, end-to-end integration, and a extensive cloud readiness study should be performed and a return on investment, ROI, analysis should be made before you consider going totally into the cloud. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve.
Hello, everyone. Well, this is actually a marketing screen from a cloud integrator. The arrows above represent internet connections with software windows, either actual web browser-based applications or shared screen technologies like remote desktop services or Citrix or XenApps. A budget-friendly cloud is an integrated service delivery solution that provides immediate access to complete computing environment without the cost and risk of building and maintaining it yourself. The solution provides an all-inclusive, fully managed and supported IT infrastructure that requires minimal upfront capital investment. For a monthly fee, budget-friendly cloud includes new servers, software licensing, storage, virus protection, help desk support, PC and server monitoring, backup, intrusion protection, spam and spyware filtration, and more. Usually a budget-friendly cloud is an SAS-70 Type 2 data center with a choice of virtual or dedicated servers, or we supply the infrastructure, server, hardware, and software licensing. Software, your choice of software such as email, accounting, CRM, ERP, and more, provided on a subscription-based licensing, or you supply your own license. Office end users are the employees working on-site in the office, and remote end users are employees working from home or on the road. These are just some cloud computing trends. Now, I'm not going to read through all of these, but it does say that cloud computing will lead to a 12 to 15% decrease in channel companies within the next 5 years as more end users or customers turn to their vendors for cloud technologies and services and leave their partners behind. Cloud computing advantages: reduces admin overhead and costs, productivity, anytime, anywhere availability, and financial flexibility and control over your IT spending. So it eliminates capital expenditures for your hardware, software, and network equipment. It eliminates the business risk associated with owning and managing computer technology. Reduces your administrative overhead and associated costs. Frees up your IT staff to refocus on strategic business building objectives and projects. Cloud computing disadvantages: the internet going down. While you can mitigate this risk by using a commercial-grade internet connection and maintaining a second backup connection, there is a chance that you'll lose internet connectivity, making it impossible to work, which we all know from time to time the internet is not up always. It goes down, and you can set up different ways to have multiple internet connections. Data security. Many people don't feel comfortable having their data in some off-site location. This is a valid concern. Before you choose any cloud provider, you need to find out more information about where they're storing your data, how it's encrypted, and who has access, and how you can get it back. You'll see some more information on this later on in our presentation in the what to look for when hiring a cloud integrator. Certain line of business applications just won't work on the cloud. Compliance issues. There are a number of laws and regulations such as Graham, Leach, Bliley, Sarbanes-Oxley, and HIPAA that require companies to control and protect their data and certify that they have knowledge and control over who can access the data, who sees it, and how and where it's stored. In a public cloud environment, this can be a problem. Many cloud providers won't tell you specifically where the data is stored. Most cloud providers have SAS-70 certifications which require them to be able to describe exactly what's happening in their environment, how and where the data comes in, what the provider does with it, what controls are in place over access to it and processing of the data. But as the business owner, it's your neck on the line if the data is compromised. So it's important that you ask some type of validation when you're meeting with various compliance compliance regulations on an ongoing basis with your providers. Cloud computing in your business. Hey, it's pretty straight here. Don't do it yourself. Contract with a cloud integrator. Don't buy cheap. You really do get what you pay for. And have a cloud readiness assessment performed and ROI analysis. So when does it make sense to move to the cloud? Well, you may be in a position where you have a hardware-software refresh cycle. You know, your Exchange needs to be updated, or your server operating system's out of date, or the server itself is out of date and needs to be replaced. Excellent time to be looking at moving that out to the cloud. Point solutions are also attractive, like Exchange Server. Your Exchange Server is old and you don't want to maintain it anymore or pay for the IT people to do it, or restore or back up all of the issues you run into with managing Exchange Server. It may make sense just to hire that out to a cloud provider. If you're in your business, you just want to have your IT stuff handled, that would make sense for you to move to the cloud. If you want to avoid the high cost and risk of doing it yourself. And you can avoid focusing on that and focus on the core competency of running your business. Or if you don't want to have an internal IT staff or maintain a small one. If you have multiple locations, there's another good reason to use the cloud. You don't have to worry about the infrastructure. We have virtual workers or a dispersed workforce. Same thing goes there. Or if you're looking for a SaaS for a key line of business application. Some questions to ask your SaaS provider. How easy will it be to integrate your solution with other applications? Your SaaS vendor should have already integrated its solution with other complementary applications and should offer standards-based interface to enable additional integrations. You shouldn't have to settle for an all-in-one suite from a single vendor. Can your application be customized? SaaS vendors should offer ways to customize and personalize their applications to meet your specific needs. How often is your solution enhanced? SaaS solutions are commonly updated every month. Ask your SaaS vendors to show you their product roadmaps and ask how and when they roll out enhancements. What kind of responsiveness can I expect when I need support? Find out about the vendor's phone, email, and live chat support. Ask for typical response times. Also ask about available self-help solutions. In case of a major disaster, what systems do you have in place to protect my data? Find out whether the vendor offers co-location capabilities, guarantees that customers will be up and running within a certain time frame, and the amount of data loss that can be expected in the case of a disaster. If I decide to terminate my contract, how easy will it be to get my data back? With the SaaS vendor, will the SaaS vendor export your data from its system immediately and offer it to you in the optional external mediums and format? Will the vendor offer limited access to data for a set amount of time following the termination? All good questions. Some other questions are, do you guarantee system availability? Ask vendors to demonstrate that they are meeting their availability targets and ask for reference accounts if they had any issues. Another good question is to ask what happens if they fail to meet the SLAs. So you ask the vendor to provide a detailed account of consequences for missing SLAs, which are service level agreements. Does it guarantee subscription credit and fee refunds if SLAs for uptime and support responsiveness are not met? Does the vendor have a plan in place where their employee compensation is tied to customer satisfaction? These are questions to ask your cloud provider. What security tier is your compliant data? Are they a Tier 3 or Tier 4 SAS 70 type compliant data center? Can we integrate or replace Active Directory? In other words, could you have your internal LAN be connected to an Active Directory server that's being hosted on the cloud? You have the ability to host and support a variety of backup and disaster recovery solutions.
With all the talk of cloud computing, what really is the advantage of it for my organization?
There are some advantages. If you're a small business, and typically in today's world, you have an IT service provider. I mean, if you're a 20-user or 30-user business, you typically don't have in-house IT staff. You have someone that coordinates that, and that's coordinated with a vendor such as ourselves. We provide managed services. We manage the workstations and the servers and the applications and all of that, and we do that for a fixed fee every month. If not, you're in a break-fix mode. You pay as you go, and you generally have pretty bad stuff because if it's not broken, nobody fixes it. It's not managed. It's not proactively maintained. But either case, when the time comes for you to consider where you want to go with an update for your IT infrastructure, like we said, if your Exchange server is 2003 and it's now 9 years old, it's time to upgrade to 2010, or you want to modernize your line of business application that requires a new server, you want to upgrade to Windows 7 workstations. When that time comes, if you're at that point, it pays to take a look at the cloud. You've got an operating expense instead of laying out all the capital investment to buy the infrastructure, the servers, workstations, support. You've got the ability to pretty much use the applications from anywhere. You're not dependent on having to be in your LAN or support a terminal services server to have remote users come in, and all the bullets we covered on that slide. So those are the benefits. Whether or not it turns out to be an economic a good economic investment is going to be determined by what we call a cloud readiness assessment, and that's a pretty significant document where we go through and we look at what's in place, we look at the cloud alternatives, and then we do a return on investment where we measure purchasing new infrastructure versus moving to the cloud, and that's done in a complex Excel spreadsheet, and we total it up and we say, here's the bottom line. And we say this is what it's going to cost to do it on-premise or on-premise cloud servers. This is what it's going to cost in the cloud, and here's the pros and cons. And we do that analysis, and then the client can make the decision.
Okay, Bob, I have another question. Louis says, we are a graphic design company with 2 TB of live jobs that need to be accessed and edited all the time. We manipulate large files all the time. How would we benefit from your services? I would think it would slow down our workflow working online.
That's a very good question. AutoCAD and any kind of CAD for that matter, any kind of heavy graphics usage, that always comes up. Barcode, how do you interface with barcode operations, whether it's or RFID, or how do you interface with those on a production line on a factory floor? How do they talk to a cloud server? But in the terms of the large graphic files and those kinds of things, they do not lend themselves well to going to the cloud because of there's no gigabit networking speed to move them from a local server to a workstation because they're manipulated all the time. So generally they stay on premise.
Okay. Another question. How can you be sure that data is secure in cloud computing when things are seemingly out of your control versus the traditional in-house software server method?
One of the parts of the cloud readiness assessment is to make sure that the cloud service providers that have been selected do in fact have proper antivirus and firewall security, that they have proper compliance with data regulations. So that is part of the process that you work through with a cloud integrator when you're meeting with them.
Okay. And then Louis had another comment. He said, how about using you as a backup to back up our massive amounts of data? Would that make sense for their organization?
Well, it may. We have been providing our clients in our local area here with what we call a business continuity, backup, and disaster recovery appliance for just over 3 years. Mm-hmm. And what that is that appliance sits at the customer site. It's actually a server, running Windows Storage Server software and Shadow Protect from StorageCraft. And what it does, it replaces traditional backup where it does image snapshots of the servers and their data every 15 minutes. And it turns around and ships those at the end of the day. It ships those backup images off-site to 2 co-locations, so that if there is a disaster and the building burns down, or there's more likely theft or vandalism and the servers are destroyed, the co-location will take a new server off the shelf, put that data image from the night before on it, ship it into a temporary location. We put some PCs together and some switches, and we virtualize. We bring all the servers that have been imaged, we bring them up in virtual mode on the replacement BDR, and you're back up in a day or a day and a half. In addition, if a primary server goes down, let's say you have an Exchange server and a line of business server, and your Exchange server has a hardware failure and it's not going to be able to be repaired for a day or longer, we can bring that server up in virtual mode on the backup disaster recovery appliance, and your users can run and function until that physical server is repaired. So to answer his question specifically, that's what a BDR appliance, or what we call a data vault, does. Specifically, if he has large amounts of data files that he wants to store, protect, in an off-site location, he probably would simply be better with one of the data storage providers, Amazon or Ignite, EGNYTE. And by the way, we will send these PowerPoints out if anyone wants them. So if we get a set of emails, we'll send them out so that you have the detail that we provided in our speech. But that would be just getting some data space that is secured and already backed up and redundant. Just purchase that data and pay for it monthly.
Great. I have one more question. How does cloud computing impact my business ERP plans?
Well, that depends more specifically on the ERP application itself. Most traditional ERP systems are not designed to run in a web browser. So if we put them in the cloud, that means that we must run them with a remote desktop services, previously called terminal services, or a Citrix XenApp screen emulation environment. So you need to check with your line of business application provider to make sure that it will function properly, it'll perform properly, and you can print properly in an RDP or RDS or Citrix environment. In addition, you need to deal with updates, software updates, and patches and fixes and enhancements. How are they going to be done if you move it to the cloud? So part of our cloud readiness assessment document addresses all those issues. There's a whole section on your line of business application and what to ask that line of business vendor before you move it to the cloud.
Great. Steve, do you have any comments to add to the question?
Well, I was the fellow that asked about the data being stored off-site or being redundant someplace. Yeah. That's what I thought as soon as he said he was working with the large files, the graphic files. And my suggestion would be to find a provider who actually configures all of that for them, or has an application that uses one of the Amazon services as a storage location. And there's a number of them out there.
Once again, thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you found the webinar informational. If you would like to discuss cloud computing further with us, please contact your local WSC Consulting Group partner. And Bob and Steve, thank you so much for the great webinar, and thank you everyone for joining us.